Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is Educational Podcasting Today, episode number 37. Today, we're going to be talking about your podcast and how you should be automating, well, most of it. Today, we're going to be talking to an amazing educator and podcaster, Dan Kreiness, from the Leader of Learning podcast, and we're going to be talking not only about his great show, but some of the things that he's doing with social media that's pretty innovative. Before we get to our interview with Dan, of course, there's several great things that you can do if you're interested in taking your podcast to the next level. You can, of course, contact us on Twitter at Podcasting Today. Leave us a voice message over at teachercast.net/voicemail, and, of course, email us over at feedback@teachercast.net. And as, of course, we get through our 2019 year here, we want to remind you guys that we just opened up a brand new channel to help you guys learn how to make a podcast. Visit podcastingwithstudents.com today. That's podcastingwithstudents.com today. We've got some great resources on curriculum writing, equipment, app reviews, everything that you're looking for classroom podcasting. Visit Podcasting with Students today. And of course, I want to bring on our guest for the day, Dan Kreiness. How are you today? Welcome to the show.
Man, thanks for having me, Jeff. We've seen each other in person, and I've heard you speak before. But hearing that intro and you announcing, "I am Jeff Bradbury," something about that just really gets me going. So I appreciate you having me. Thank you for all you do, and just thanks for letting me come on and give me some time.
It is so nice to have you on. I think this is like the 15th or 17th time we've tried to make it happen over the couple years. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You are a Connecticut/New York educator now?
That's right. Yeah. So I live in Connecticut, but I just made the move to a new district back in New York. I took an educational administrative role. It's kind of a weird title. I am now called an academic standards facilitator. The easiest way that I could introduce myself and explain to people what I do is it's really assistant principal of instruction. So there are aspects of the traditional assistant principal role that I don't necessarily have to deal with, like student behavior and discipline, but I do have lots of responsibilities when it comes to maintaining the academic standards, hence the title.
Now, all of this is really helping you create your podcast, or is it the other way around, right? You are the host of the Leader of Learning podcast. Tell us a little bit about the show and how'd you get started podcasting?
Yeah, I've heard other people say this, and so it's not necessarily a unique story, but basically, I got interested in creating content in general, and I'm a pretty good writer, but I'm also a doctoral student writing my dissertation, and I didn't want to do any more writing when it comes to blogging and things like that. So I said, I think the way I need to go is creating content that is audio. I have a little bit of a background in broadcast journalism and radio production, and I just figured, why not start a podcast? And so I think I learned from the best, and I've honed my craft and improved all the time. I'm still improving, and the show is called Leader of Learning, and I'm learning all the time. And to be honest, and I know this sounds really cheesy or I don't know, narcissistic, I'm like my biggest fan. I'm the biggest fan of my show, and I say that for good reason, because I do it mostly for me. It's a professional development opportunity for me. The perks are all the listeners and all the amazing guests that I get to bring on and learn from every 2 weeks. And it's been an amazing ride for a year and a half now, and it's not going to end anytime soon. And I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Now, you just said that you learn from the best. Who do you look up to? Who do you follow? And what kind of podcasts are on your playlist?
Yeah, I mean, some of the first ones that I started listening to, and by the way, I know sometimes educational podcasters say, don't always just go to educational podcasts, but that's kind of my realm. That's my thing. I listen to a lot of them. Some of the first ones I started listening to were House of Ed Tech by Chris Nesi, Better Leaders, Better Schools, Danny Bauer, definitely TeacherCast. Shout out to Jeff and everybody who's a part of that. But yeah, I've learned a lot along the way. And of course, I think that very first step that I took was really becoming a fan of podcasts first and foremost, and then really just diving in and getting started. Chris on the House of Ed Tech, he always says, just hit record, just start, try it out. When he talks about ed tech, just try it. And that's what I did.
I would certainly echo that. With many podcasters, even today, I'm working with a fellow in our school district who wants to start a show. He sits down with me a couple weeks ago and says, "I'm starting a show," and I said, "Great, I'd love to hear it." And then today he sits down at my desk and he says, "I'm starting a second show," and I said, "Great, how's the first one going?" And he says, "I haven't recorded it yet." I said, "Wait a minute, you're starting your second show before you even hit record on your first show." Do you ever have times like that where you've got so many ideas for your show, you just don't know where to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a challenge, but it's a great challenge to have in order to kind of prioritize and manage your time wisely. If you're like me and you do a show where you're bringing on guests every other week, lining them up and booking them in such a way where those ideas that you have are going to align with the guests you're bringing on and where you want to head with your show. My show is a little bit all over the place. Every 2 weeks, we're talking about some pretty different topics, but I do try and put episodes out that not only align with all those ideas, like you said, that are kicking around in my head, but what makes sense logically in terms of a sequence of episodes as well.
So a lot of times people write into us, and of course, anybody out there can find us over on Twitter at Podcasting Today. And the first question they immediately want to ask is, how do you put your show together? Dan, I see you got some good equipment there. What are you using these days to make your show happen?
So when I first started podcasting, I really wanted to sort of be that guy who was like, look, you could start with little to no money. Um, a year and a half into it, I have spent some money, but I try and keep it on the cheap and as inexpensive as possible. So let me start with the microphone or microphones I use. I have two of them. I went with the Samson Q2U. Without getting too technical, what I love about this microphone is it is around $50 to $60 on Amazon. And what's great about it is not only does it have the traditional XLR hookup, but it also has USB. So literally, you can just go right from the microphone straight into any computer, Chromebook, MacBook, anything that has a USB port, and record right into it. What I also love about the microphone was when I bought it and when you buy it currently still on Amazon, you can get it in a pack that comes with a cute little stand and I think some headphones came with it, stuff like that. And so it's a nice little package for someone who's, let's say, starting out in podcasting. So that's my microphone. Like I said, I have two of them now because I love the first one so much. This way, and I usually don't, but if I am podcasting live and I have a guest right there with me, we both can be using something that sounds really great. Again, not getting too technical, but what I enjoy about the microphone is it's a directional microphone and it picks up only what's right in front of it, and so not a lot of background noise. And right now, my kids are asleep. We're recording at night, but if they were, let's say, upstairs in my house and I'm downstairs, or if I'm in a place in my school that's a little noisy, it really won't pick that up.
Nice. Any other pieces of equipment that you might want to recommend?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, again, I like to go kind of simple and cheap as possible. But in addition to the microphones, I picked up a couple of little microphone stands. Like I have a little desktop stand. To be honest, let me see if I can find the brand. Oh yeah, Neewer is the brand. Neewer. They have microphone stands of all shapes and sizes. But I went with, I think, a 3-pack of mini desktop stands. I think it ran me around $20 for 3 different stands. So pretty good deal. And then, just I usually kind of just run it into my Chromebook or in this case right now, the PC that I have in my house, and I'm good to go.
Nice. Now, your show is the Leader of Learning podcast, and of course, we can find more information about that over at leaderoflearning.com. Talk to us a little bit about the show. What are some of the topics that we might find interesting when we listen to it?
So essentially, it's a show all about leadership and transformational leadership, transforming education, and it's really for people who consider themselves educational leaders. And I'll be honest with you, in my opinion, that is literally every single person who calls themselves an educator. Because I always say it on every show, no matter who you are or where you are, you can be a leader of learning. And so I think it's really about providing inspiration for people, no matter what their role is in education, what their title is, that they know there's a role they're playing and there's leadership involved. And so we do jump a little bit all over the place in terms of topics and guests, but really every 2 weeks, each episode features someone who is a leader of learning in their own right. Some of my most recent episodes feature people speaking about topics ranging from equity in education, racial equity, even digital equity. I'm actually bringing on a guest very soon to talk about, and I know this is a really deep and heavy topic, but I think it's really important for people who consider themselves leaders in education, abusive and unhealthy relationships, and what to do when you're faced with students or other staff members, educators who are going through stuff like that. It's not easy to talk about, but I think it's important.
You know, we've been featuring a lot of podcasters on the show here, and especially, again, we had Danny Bauer on a few weeks ago. Again, an administrative type leadership podcast. Why is it important for administrators to not only have a podcast for them, but why is it important for them to listen to podcasts about being a good leader?
I think first and foremost, any educator, including administrators, need to be lifelong learners. And, it's funny to say this, being only an administrator and in an administrative role for like a couple of months, but it's hard sometimes to continue learning if you don't really make it a priority. And so, like I said, in my case, I'm my biggest fan, and I mean that. I think my podcast is my professional learning. One of the best ways that I know that I can keep developing myself is by doing the show. If someone doesn't have a show and they just want to listen to podcasts, that's great too. I'm not knocking my listeners, my audience members, your audience members, because it's an amazing way to continue to get content that is timely, relevant, and just really, really important to keep continuing to push education forward.
Now, I'm looking over here at your website again, leaderoflearning.com, and I'm noticing everything looks beautiful. The graphics are nice. Everything is uniform. You've got this branding thing going on pretty well, which is another one of those topics people keep writing in about. Talk to us a little bit about branding. What is it really for, and why is it important for podcasters to have some kind of a uniform brand?
Yeah. First, thanks for the compliments on the website. It's definitely a passion project and something I really enjoy doing. But I think definitely branding is important. I said it before. I think creating content is important for educators, for students, everyone involved in education. And when you do put out content, it's important to really understand, I think, in my opinion, as it relates to branding, really three different things: why you're doing it, who you're doing it for, and what message you want to put out there. So for me, and I know, I'm a big fan of other podcasts, yours included, and I know other people do this as well. They have like a tagline, a catchphrase, something that really relates to what their why is. For me, it's where educators can come find inspiration to transform education through effective leadership. It's what I say at the top of every show, and I mean it. That's why I do what I do. And so, in terms of the branding, I know, and everyone who listens to my show every 2 weeks, they know exactly what the show is about and what I'm about as the host. And then in terms of the audience, who I'm targeting, for me, it's educators and aspiring leaders and maybe administrators, new administrators like myself, or people who have been doing it for a while, but really, keeping it pretty general. And whether it's podcasting, blogging, any content creation, that branding is, if you don't know who it's for, I think you're going to be a little bit lost, to be honest with you. And so it's just like we teach our students when they're writing, you got to know who the audience is. Finally, the message. Every 2 weeks, I'm putting out episodes, and it's different messages all the time, but consistency is really important. You know, um, Having people receive those messages. So I use in terms of the branding of my show and Leader of Learning website, everything that goes along with it. I'm looking to maintain that consistency through everything, like down to the logo and the graphics that I use, whatever content is being shared, including interviews with guests, anything I do on social media, of course, and just in general, how I present myself through interactions with my PLN, whether that be virtually or in person at conferences. When I see people and they know me as, hey, that's the Leader of Learning guy, then I want to make sure that I'm true to myself and true to the brand, really. And that might sound really business-like, I guess, in a way, but I just think if you're going to be that kind of content creator, that you sort of have a responsibility, I think, to really stay true to that message.
So how does that start, right? Because when we're looking at graphics and branding, what's your graphic program of choice?
I really enjoy using Canva. I don't even remember exactly how or when I got turned on to that, but I really enjoy using Canva. It's pretty simple to use. I do most of it on the web version, on either a desktop or a Chromebook, but they do have a phone app where you can make some tweaks and redesign things. I don't know that I would start there for designing anything, but definitely if you want to make some edits, make some changes on the fly. Again, I do it on the cheap. I have a free version, but the paid version of Canva, and I'm not being sponsored by them, but maybe Canva, if you're listening, I'm plugging you pretty hard right now. The paid version, they have this thing called Magic Resize, and you could take, let's say, a Twitter graphic that's kind of horizontal and rectangular shaped, and then reshape it to like an Instagram stories layout really easily. So I really like using that program quite a bit. I've used other ones like Adobe Spark and things of that nature, but I always just kind of come back to Canva, to be honest with you.
I am a big, huge Canva fan. It is one of the few apps I'm actually a paid user for because I love that resizing feature. Everything you see on TeacherCast is Canva made, and I can't say enough about that app. One of the other things that we were talking about, that I definitely wanted to touch on tonight is this whole concept of, using social media to your advantage, right? Many podcasters are popping stuff out on Twitter, on Facebook, but really to use it right takes a little bit of finesse. And you're doing some pretty interesting things to kind of auto post your social media to kind of give you, I guess, some more time at home, some more time with your family. Talk to us a little bit about the importance of automation.
Yeah, so I do think that it is very important when you're putting content out there to, again, like, go simple. I think, I guess, if there's one thing that at the end of this, your listeners audience comes out with, it's that podcasting, blogging, any kind of content creation really only has to be as difficult and as time consuming as you want it to be. And I don't really want it to be. I really do have fun doing it. It's a love, it's a passion, but I'm not spending all day every day doing what I do. So I have a few systems that I like to use to automate my outreach, let's say, and my branding. So the first is social media. When you see me on Twitter or Instagram as Leader of Learning, if I'm putting something out there, there's a darn good chance that that is not necessarily me posting every single time something goes out, but it's been automated. And I use a few different tools to automate my social media. The best one I use is called Recur Post. Again, free version. They do have some paid stuff, but I go with the free one. And what that allows me to do is create, I forget what they call them, but essentially I create different posts to go out on a schedule that I set. You can set it to go out to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the big social media accounts, and you just schedule it ahead of time, and you can go back in and edit all you want. But whenever that post is set to go out, it goes out, and you don't really have to worry about it too much. I also use, in addition to that, IFTTT, or the long form version of that is if this, then that. And I guess to not confuse people too much, basically, that's just a way of establishing rules. They call them applets. Each applet will allow you to set a rule that says, if I do this, then this will occur. And so, for example, I will use recur post to post to my Instagram account, which automatically via an applet in IFTTT will send to my Twitter feed, and will also send, if I use a certain hashtag, to my Facebook page. So I don't want to get it. I mean, this is kind of getting a little technical, and I don't want to confuse anyone. But basically, those two systems work really well together. I establish my posts in recur post, and then I use IFTTT to push everything out automatically.
I love using if this then that. I was actually tweaking my settings on this today. One of my favorite recipes that I'm thankfully I set up back in 2014 was anytime somebody follows you on Twitter, automatically add it to a row in a Google Sheet. And I think over the last couple, I'm up to like, 7 or 8 Google Sheets, like, it bottoms out and then starts another show. But now I have, Google Sheets with who, what, where, when, whatever your link is to your website, all that stuff gets collected into a sheet. It's been pretty neat. I don't do very much with it, but hey, now if I ever want to find, tech coaches who follow me, I can just sort the sheet and boom, I can now find a podcast guest for my tech coach show or a podcaster for this show. There's a lot of different ways that you can use that stuff.
It is really neat. And I mean,
yeah.
if you go on if this then that, you'll see there are so many different services that are part of that, and you can even create your own applets that they call them. Everything from social media to to-do list to I mean, even I can't find the right term. Voice assistants.
Yes.
You could, if you have one of those, I won't say the name, but if you have one of those made by Amazon, or if you have one made by Google, it doesn't matter. You can even program it to do different things with your voice assistants. It's really amazing. It really is. And you don't have to pay anything for that.
And I love the ones, I don't know how annoying these things are, but, if it's under a certain degree outside, text me in the morning to let me know that it's raining. One of those, it's just, there's a lot of neat things on there. We've done a few podcasts over the years on if this, then that, but all good stuff.
Hey, you know what? I'm actually I'm gonna help your listeners and my listeners at the same time. There's even an applet that you can use, and I'm probably the only one who uses it for my show. That's okay. Again, I'm my biggest fan. I've actually have an applet in there that is set to send me a push notification on my phone every time something new drops on a certain RSS feed. So, of course, I have it set to the RSS feed on my podcast. And every time a new episode comes out, of course, I know about it already. But I like to get the little push notification on my phone just to look cool.
Now, can you share those? I gotta ask. Like, can you put that in a blog post that says, click here, and every time one of my things happens, then you'll get it? Or is that just personal that you can do that?
That's an amazing question.
Hey, let's try that together.
Challenge accepted. I'm going to definitely find that out.
All right. Now, the other thing that you and I both have in common are WordPress and WordPress plugins. You and I are both a big fan of Revive Old Posts plugin. I used that thing for, 7 years. I actually, to be honest with you, I recently deleted it. Like, I only deleted it like a month ago.
I actually recently had to reach out to them because it wasn't working. No, they are. And I should have done it quicker than I did, but it wasn't working. And I was starting to get pretty frustrated about it. And really all I needed to do, and I think this is because I do use it so much and I've been using it for a while, I needed to actually up my memory storage limit on WordPress in order to get it to start working again.
That was one of the reasons why I stopped. As soon as it starts slowing down your website, it's not worth it.
Yeah,
but it's a great plugin. It really is.
It is. And so just to talk about that for a second, basically, if you're like me, you're like Jeff and some of the other podcasters that I know we hang out with, if you put your episode or your show notes out as a blog post, then what this plugin on WordPress will do is it will recycle those old posts that you have pushed out on your site. So for example, my latest episode came out last Monday. And so basically, moving forward now, I won't have to republish those same notes, but automatically Revive Old Posts will say, okay, this is one of your, and I have it set to anything that's in the category of podcast episodes. So WordPress and the Revive Old Posts plugin will recognize, hey, that was a post that's in that category, and they will recycle it. And I have it set to recycle every, I think, 12 hours. So basically twice a day, I'm automatically sending out old posts.
I kind of had mine set for every 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You're definitely overloading the system there.
Definitely overloaded the system on that one. Don't do that one at home if anybody's trying it out there. That is how you slow down your system, because well, we don't need to get into what's called a cron job, CRON, but that's don't do it every 20 minutes. But trust me, that plugin does work. Now, I wanna kind of wrap up here with the newsletter topic, right? This is something that we were talking about the other day on Voxer. Everybody seems to have an opinion on it. I wanted to kind of get into a little conversation with you. You are a newsletter person. I'm on your website. It pops up, join my newsletter. What are your thoughts on newsletters, on podcasting? What should a podcasting newsletter be? Take it away, Dan. What do you think?
All right. So I'll admit, I don't think I'm like a professional newsletter kind of guy, but what I really enjoy about doing it is I think the newsletter is almost the ultimate community builder. People who are really invested in the show and in me as the host or any podcast host, I think they need that, dare I say, more intimate kind of outreach and communication. And so after starting my show and doing it for a little while, I realized I think I'd like to put out a newsletter. And it started really slow in terms of the number of subscribers, but it's definitely growing all the time. And I like to use a program called MailChimp. I don't know that there are really many reasons why I prefer MailChimp over anything else, because I haven't really tried anything else. But what I do really like about MailChimp, and I use this a lot, talking about automation again and making things really easy, not having to spend too much time. Once I got a little bit familiar with how to lay out an email in MailChimp, I created a template. So every time I push out show notes, which is every 2 weeks in my case when I do a new episode, the template looks the same. And I just have to go in there and edit a little tiny bit of information, copy and paste the show notes from my website or a Google Doc that I create, and it's ready to go. So I love using MailChimp and especially for that template feature.
I agree with you on that. Having something that is personalized out to your users. I mean, look, everybody has an email address, right? So it's a matter of how do you change that? Because not everyone's going to listen to your podcast each week. Not everyone's going to even know that your podcast is downloadable each week, but everybody gets an email and everybody can see when things are out there. And, if you guys are out there looking for information on newsletters, please let us know. That's why we have our website, Educational Podcasting Today. You can, of course, check that out. We've got some great features on there for some of our favorite email programs. I love MailChimp. It is a great place to get started and to use those templates. And they're visually really nice looking, too.
Yeah, I feel like they're actually kind of upgrading and updating all the time. Their own branding and their own logo updated not too long ago, and that looks really nice too. I think MailChimp does a really good job with that. First of all, you said it a minute ago, and I just want to reiterate, I don't necessarily take the time as often as I should on my own show to say this, but if anyone has any questions as technical as you want about podcasting, starting a show, equipment, all of the things we talked about with automation. I know, Jeff, that you'll have the information up there, but definitely reach out to us. I do say this on my show. I love hearing from listeners and audience members, not just a retweet on Twitter, but really reaching out, not just subscribing to the emails either, but sending an email. Shoot me an email. drop me a message on Voxer. I'd love to, that's one of the things too about creating content. I love when people reach out to me and say, how can I get started? You were talking about the person who started their first show and then went on to their second show. I can name, I don't know, at least 3, 4, 5 people that I know for sure said, hey, Dan, how can I do it? And now they have their own podcasts, and I'm pretty proud of them. But I know that I played at least a small role in getting them started, and now they just taken it and run with it.
And that's really what I think is rewarding about all of this. Going to an ed camp, helping somebody learn how to do this, going to a conference and meeting somebody and they say, hey, how can I do my show better? And you get a chance to work with educational podcasters. That is the reason why we started this show. That is the reason why this show exists. If you guys are looking to out there make a podcast, check out this great stuff that Dan's doing. Of course, you can go over to educationalpodcasting.today. Or again, if you're looking to do stuff in your classrooms, go over to podcastingwithstudents.com. We've got some great stuff. Now, Dan, you are not prepared for what's coming to you, but we have a podcasting challenge for you if you're interested in accepting the podcasting challenge. Would you be up for accepting a challenge today?
I think so. I hope so.
We have a tradition here that not everybody gets a chance to do this. So, I'll tell you, Danny Bauer didn't get this opportunity. Dr. Will didn't get this opportunity, but you, my friend, I'm gonna bestow upon you the amazing opportunity to take what we call here the Jersey 5. 5 questions that every podcaster, every educator needs to answer. Are you interested in taking the Jersey 5 today?
I am. Wow, that's a lot of pressure. I'm a big fan of Danny Bauer, as I said, and Dr. Will. I heard the episode you did with Dr. Will. It was amazing, by the way. He's great. So
it was pretty dope, don't you think?
Definitely dope. Definitely dope.
I don't know what that means. All right, so the first question is this. What is your favorite Twitter account or hashtag to follow?
Oh, wow.
This is the easy question.
I'm gonna try both. Let's see. My favorite Twitter account to follow. Man, there's so many. It's so hard. I'm gonna say I'm just gonna go with Dave Burgess. I think that guy is just. I feel his energy through Twitter. It's crazy how much energy that guy has. He's the pirate himself.
Favorite hashtag?
Favorite hashtag. You know what? This is sort of an oldie but a goodie. I love this community. I'm gonna go with Lead Up Chat. Hashtag okay. Lead Up Chat.
All right, number 2 here, and this can be podcasting related or not. That's certainly fine. Favorite educational tool? Again, you're on an island. You had to take one thing with you.
That one's easy because I have such a love for it. I'm a pioneer. I got to go with Nearpod. I love Nearpod.
How come?
When I started using that in my classroom, it was right around the time that my school was starting to go one-to-one, and even though we were having still some technical issues. That app for me, the fact that I could present on each device and every device was locked into exactly what I was doing at exactly the same time. It opened up like my eyes to the world of educational technology and really started to show me what true student engagement was through technology. And long story short, there was one day where I had to leave the classroom for just a short period of time, maybe 15, 20 minutes. My principal actually covered my class, and literally I handed him my presentation remote and I said, you know what? Everything is in this Nearpod presentation. It's super interactive. The kids will know exactly what to do. Here you go. Here's the remote. All you need to do is click through it. He did. And when I came back 15, 20 minutes later, he was like, oh my God, this is awesome. And that was like one of the moments that just really hooked me into it. But yeah, Nearpod is like my go-to.
That is an awesome, awesome story. All right, they're going to get harder from here. Question number 3. What is the best advice you have ever been given as a podcaster?
The best advice I've been given as a podcaster, I think, and I've kind of alluded to it before, is just really make the show something that you enjoy, and basically just do it for you first. Before for the audience. I actually was going to mention this a minute ago and I didn't. I think for anyone listening who has a podcast or is thinking about starting a podcast, don't worry, and because we haven't really talked about it much tonight either, don't worry about the statistics, the download numbers. I briefly mentioned the number of subscribers on my newsletter, but I didn't tell you what it was. Don't worry about that stuff. Just do a show, put out content that you're proud of, and most importantly, that just means a lot to you and that you're going to learn from.
You know, I have the same advice when people ask me about my family. They say, "How many kids do you have?" I say, "I don't worry about that."
Yeah, you got that's some crew you got there.
We don't talk about that number. All right, here we go. Number 4. What do you hope your, and I changed this around, but let me make this podcasting related. What do you hope your podcast listeners remember about you when your show is over?
Ooh, that's like a legacy kind of question. When my show is over,
I don't mean
really...
like at the end of, like, you know, like, I don't mean like 3 years from now. I mean, like, you know, they're at the end of the show, they're done. You want them to think about something. And Casper mattresses is not the answer.
I do have run some ads at the end of the show, so maybe it's whatever they decide to play at the end. But no, you know, this goes back to the branding thing. I think for me, you know, it kind of gets back to my little catchphrase. It's where educators can come find inspiration. So I want them to leave with inspiration to, in some area, to some degree, feel like they can play a part in literally transforming education. And I don't care whether that means transforming education in one classroom or one school or across the country. Heck, you know, I mean, I communicate with people all over the world. I know there are people who listen to the podcast from around the world. So on as small a scale or as large a scale as possible, definitely just coming out with some form of inspiration where someone feels like, you know what, I can do it. I am a leader, and here's how I can show it.
And the last question here, what is the best teachable moment you've ever had?
The best teachable moment I ever had, I think honestly, and man, I hate to like end on this note, so we'll have to figure something else out in the last couple of minutes that we have. But I live pretty darn close to Newtown, Connecticut. And even though I was working in the Bronx in New York at the time, I just think when that Newtown tragedy happened back in 2014, for me personally, I just felt a huge responsibility to turn that moment into a teachable moment. When it, you know, as it relates to kindness and mental health, especially, and just seeking help when stuff gets rough and things are just not going your way. So I'm sorry to get heavy on you, but that to me stands out as like the moment where I just had to take something. Unfortunately, it was a tragedy, but just turn it into something.
Dan, you are doing a good job at this, but you know what? I know it's called the Jersey Five. We actually had a listener here bring in one question. Would you mind taking a listener question here?
Yeah, sure.
This is from Miss Valerie Lewis. You might recognize her from the podcast that you do, the Leader of Learning podcast. I believe she was a guest on your show. She asks here,
a guest, yeah.
As a leader in learning with an official title as administrator now, because you are an admin, what things have changed for you and what things have remained the same?
Yeah. So first of all, I love Valerie. She's my girl from Passoscope EDU, and of course, like we said, she was a guest sort of early on in the show. Actually, she just does amazing things, and she is kind of a recent admin as well. Earlier this year, taking on a role as assistant principal, so she could probably answer this too. But I'm on the hot seat, so I will say that what has not changed for me is that aspect that I talked about before of being a lifelong learner, you know, and really trying to inspire the teachers that I work with to just keep on learning and pushing themselves to grow, just like we want them to push their students. And so I think what else has not changed about me is, you know, I'm basically stepping out of an instructional coaching role. And I'd like to think that I bring a lot of that coaching aspect with me into my role as an administrator now. And I think it's working out pretty well so far, although it's kind of early on. And honestly, I think it probably can only get better from here. What has changed is, of course, I have, you know, crossed the line, so to speak, from teacher to administrator. So there's a technicality that says that if I technically stay in a teacher's classroom longer than I think it's 15 minutes that I am supposed to observe them. So it's a little bit more challenging to coach teachers through like co-teaching or demonstrating in their classrooms. But I don't necessarily expect a whole lot of resistance to that. It's just a little bit tricky. Um, and of course, being now in a role where I do have evaluative powers that I'm using to observe teachers and quote unquote assess their teaching and their lessons. It's just a different relationship. Not that it's not a good, strong relationship. It's just different. I'm not going to lie. When you're doing it as a teacher or even an instructional coach who's not an administrator, it's different, and you're more at the same level. As an administrator, no matter how you slice it, it's just different. It's a little bit challenging, but again, I think for me the mindset is just to use the evaluation process as an opportunity for coaching where needed, as necessary, and I think it's been working so far.
The website is called leaderoflearning.com. The podcast is Leader of Learning. Dan Kreiness, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for creating some great podcasts for the educational community.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this time. Thank you for reaching out to your listeners and shedding some more light on my show. Hopefully, some people took what I was talking about in terms of branding your content and automating. If you're into that sort of thing and you're putting out there social media posts or anything website related, automate your stuff. Why make it harder on yourself? Just go easy, go cheap. You can do it. It can look good. It can sound good. I promise you. I'm doing it. I'm not saying I'm a professional, but I'm saying I'm keeping it on the cheap and easy and not too time consuming, because I got a dissertation to write. And wow, yeah, that takes up a lot of time. But anyway, it can be done.
And of course, if you're out there looking to create your own podcast in your own studio or, of course, with your students, we want to hear from you. We want to feature you on our Educational Podcasting Today show. Just drop us a line over on Twitter at Podcasting Today. Email us over at feedback@teachercast.net. Or if you're looking to ask us any questions about how to make a show, how to design your website, or even a little bit of educational branding, you can, of course, go to teachercast.net/voicemail and leave us a voice message today. We want to again say thank you to Dan for taking the time out of his day to come on the show to us. Check out Leader of Learning podcast. Lots of great stuff over there. And on behalf of everybody here on the TeacherCast Educational Network, my name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.